Florida State comes in at number 10 in the AP Top 25 poll, but where should they be ranked?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate everybody stopping in to have some fun and talk some Noles. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs wind down and all the sports stop just a little bit before college football and pro football get underway. This summer, FanDuel is making it happen for all of its customers with a booster of bonus each and every day. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. AP Top 25 dropped yesterday. Noles come in at number 10. High, low, right where it needs to be. Everybody has their opinion. It's a preseason poll. But I am going to define for you today why they should be at least a spot or two higher, minimum, and it's based on the following premise. Name a college football program over the last 2 years since the portal's really gotten going that has done a better job than Mike Norvell and his Noles of utilizing the transfer portal to not just be good, but completely change things. Chemistry, talent, plugging holes, positions of need, elite positions, like certain spots are more important than others. They've quite honestly hit on all of that as well, if not better, than any college football program. Why would you not think that Florida State is going to do that again this year? And we'll go over some of the names here in a minute. But prior to that, in this first little bit of the show, I want to give you a really important rundown. Some of the players that have come into certain programs, the head coaches, make your own opinions about it. Don't believe me. Listen to the information, then make an educated decision, and then we'll continue on with Florida State's additions, and then finally talk about the chemistry and why it all works for the Noles. So here we go. Number one in the polls, not surprising, it's Georgia. They received 46 first-place votes. Ohio State came in second. They had 15 first-place votes. Oregon only got one first-place vote, but that was the only other team to even get one. It was pretty heavy at the top. Texas fourth, Bama fifth, Ole Miss comes in at six, Notre Dame seven, Penn State eight, Michigan, the defending champs, at 9, and your Noles at number 10. So what I'm going to do is go through each team, beginning again at the top with Georgia, and then we'll get down to Florida State. It actually kind of works out conveniently. Present everything for the opposition, and then talk Florida State, and then we'll move forward. So for Georgia, if you want to pick them number one, I don't think that's really all that rough. They have the most talent top to bottom in college football. And Carson Beck's coming back averaging 281 yards passing the game in a run-first offense. That is a very unique combination. They've got incredible depth on their defensive and offensive lines. And overall, their talent is just tremendous. I would say that you can't really pick a player. The only question I have, and everybody's going to say the same thing, how do you replace Brock Bowers? The answer is you don't. You have to do it in conjunction with several players. Oscar Delp and several other players at the tight end spot for them will be important, but they don't utilize the portal as much. This is something I've mentioned on this show. They hit a few here and there, but by and large, that's not a team that is going to do it as much as, say, like Ole Miss, who I'll talk about in a minute. They don't rely on it. They want more chemistry. They want more internal development, and they want to honestly just recruit the heck out of the elite kids, and they're able to do it right now out of the high school ranks. Good for them. They're kind of an exception, if you will, to this list. Ohio State is the unusual mix because they have completely changed how they run their program beginning this spring. So let's go over that. Ohio State, again, comes in at second. They had the questionable character of Quinshon Judkins. I'll give some stories in a moment from Ole Miss. Great running back talent, but yeah, let's not say he's a guy that I would claim to be a great teammate. They also get Will Howard, who is a good teammate, the quarterback for Kansas State. I don't know if he's a great quarterback or not that fits what they're trying to do in Ryan Day's scheme, but he can sling it around, and he's a big dude. He'll run. He's 240. That's a big man. The one incredible pickup they got, I mean, they got some others too. The number one portal guy you could make an argument for, no matter the position, is Caleb Downs. the freshman last year at Alabama that led them as a true freshman at Alabama with 107 tackles at safety. That's incredible. I'd seen Caleb in high school. They hit it there. But my point again is still character. The transfer portal, they took a guy like Downs, which is an automatic. Should they have taken Judkins? He's a guy that had problems calling out offensive linemen in middle games. Quarterback went to the coach and you got to get this guy out. Terrible, terrible situation. Not practice, game. Is that going to work out when the chips get down for Ohio State? Think about that as we move forward. Oregon. Now, they took a lot of guys that can play. And in particular, somebody I know, Dylan Gabriel. That is a guy that can absolutely swing it. I don't think he's got a ton of talent in terms of his pure arm strength, but he's accurate. He's on time. He'll run. That drive he had last year for Oklahoma against Texas to win the game was absolutely tremendous. So he is clutch. And then finally, he's a 6-year guy. This is experience personified going into an offense that has a lot of talent. And they added a guy by the name of Evan Stewart from Texas A&M, who might have been the best receiver the year he came out a couple years ago in high school. He's a kid that's been up and down emotionally throughout his career, but he's allegedly getting better with that. Need to see how he does at Oregon, but that's still a risk. Again, if the chips go down a little bit, how does that handle itself within Oregon's locker room? I don't know enough about their program to say for sure, but I think they've got a pretty good culture there. Having a guy like Dylan Gabriel is going to help the Ducks, but we'll see. Texas, unfortunately for them, and I'll denote this towards the end of the show in more detail, they have not one but two key injuries at the running back spot, both guys out for the year. That's trouble. Jaden Blue is going to be their guy. That's unfortunate. I know the poll comes out right with some of this news happening with the second one, Christian, forget the kid's last name, but he's a freshman from Arizona, pretty good player. But they also lost a guy that might have been the starter, a guy I know comes from the state of Florida, Cedric Baxter. He was once committed to the Noles. Great football player. He's out with an injury as well to his knee. Now I'm not so sure where I would rank Texas. Jaden Blue's really good. He's another highly touted kid, but they're contemplating, based on the intel, moving a guy from either receiver or DB to the running back spot. Not good. So that's unfortunate. I don't like moving teams down based on injury, but it's everything. I say it all the time on this show. If your best players do not play, you will suffer. There's just no way around it. Football is brutal. It's part of the gig. So that they also lost both their defensive tackles. They used the portal a little bit here and there, not as much, kind of like Georgia to a certain degree. And they did add Isaiah Bond from Alabama. He can fly. He wanted to play in a more pass-happy offense than what Alabama was running under Saban. But, however that goes, we'll see with Texas, because they may have to throw it all over the place. Isaiah may get his wish, but that may not work out. Bama is 5th. They got a new head coach, Kalen DeBoer. Quarterback situation, does anybody really, really trust Jalen Milroe to be consistent and then play well during a stretch in the playoff? Remember, he had like 116 yards passing against Michigan last year. I know they got beat up front, but he was horrific. Once the lights went on and all the brightness of the Michigan players coming at him, by halftime, he was mentally in trouble. They ran the ball pretty good. He had a few runs himself, etc., but I don't trust him. They didn't go out and get a transfer portal quarterback that's an experienced guy. They brought the kid they had at Washington, who's very talented, but he's going to be a redshirt freshman. Is Alabama going to be okay at quarterback? They got multiple guys that it could be, Ty Thompson, etc. I'm not sure, but I have questions about them. Still really talented roster, especially their defense. Their defensive end spots, etc., are just utterly ridiculous. They've got guys that are former 5-stars that are literally 14. Not exaggerating. But quarterback doesn't work out. How often does that go well for your team in big games? I still question that with Bama. Ole Miss. I don't trust Kiffin in big games. He's won one game as a head coach, and that was when he's at Southern Cal against the top 10 team, ironically, on the road at Autzen Stadium against Oregon. I think it was 35-31, one of the last years he was at Southern Cal. But he does look at this situation because he's got Jackson Dart, a former transfer, and he's taken a bunch of other kids. He lost Judkins, so that's addition by subtraction, in my opinion. And he has other guys at receiver, etc., offensive line, and he also took Walter Nolan from A&M. Now, that's another kid that's got some track record that's not good, but you will not find a more physically gifted D tackle in college football. You just won't. So that's going to be interesting. Their defense only gave up 22.5 points per game last year. They might drop that a little bit. And then, you know what? You still got to win games that are big, even with all these players. They got Georgia coming to them towards the end of the year. That's going to be interesting. Next on Locked On Seminoles, we're going to continue with this list and get to Florida State. Talk a little bit about why the Noles should be up a little higher on the AP poll. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down and we get fewer games across sports in general, the sports aren't really available like we would want them to be. FanDuel lets you and I keep everything rolling whenever we want. All you have to do is open up the app, dream up any kind of bet that you would want, whether it's baseball, college football, pro football, or anything else, and you can go at it whenever. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all its customers with a booster bonus each and every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NFL, or excuse me, the MLB. Thank you for once again making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. I truly appreciate it. Love to have you here. Please hit that like button and that notification bell, rate and review. And please, if at all possible, if you're on YouTube, comment. Love to hear what you have to say. After this, check out Locked On College Football with my buddy Spencer McLaughlin. It's a great pod. It's one I'm on a very consistent basis, talking all things across college football, NIL, transfer portal, injuries, polls like the one we're talking about today, and much more. So make sure you check out Locked On Seminoles, then Locked On College Football. Now back to the AP poll. And again, the theme here is, how did you use the portal? Did you use it well? Are you good at making those kind of decisions? Is it proven? That's why I think Florida State should be higher. I want to know what you think. Number 7 is Notre Dame. They've got a question not related to the portal at left tackle. Their starter, Charles Jagasa, is out for the year. He has an upper pec injury, I believe it is. That's rough. They lost not one, but both of their offensive tackles from last year to the early NFL draft, meaning they left after their third year. That's rough, man. The guy they have starting, I just don't think he's that great. It's a fifth-year senior that got passed by some other guys. They have more talented players pushing. By the time Florida State plays Notre Dame, I think there's a good chance it won't be the same guy that's there now as the tackle, but we'll see. They also open with A&M, who's got a great defense. Don't know. The end of the year at Southern Cal, they got Florida State in the middle. They got a game against Louisville, who they struggled with last year. A lot of questions. And Riley Leonard, ironically, was injured against Notre Dame last year when he played for Duke. And then after he transferred to Notre Dame and comes in spring, gets banged up again. All of that is interesting. They did, however, use the transfer portal very intelligently, kind of similar to Florida State on offense. Really hit a home run with the receivers. They got Chris Mitchell from down at FIU. They also hit a home run by getting Bo Collins, another big-bodied guy. He's pretty good from Clemson. I think they'll do well there. They got several players, but they didn't take guys that were just me guys. They threw bags of money at. I think it's honestly injuries. Again, that'll be at the very back of this show that's going to cause them the most problem. I don't think they can fix the left tackle situation. There just aren't enough of them. So now, I mean, I didn't have a problem where they ranked before, but now, not so sure. Penn State is next, straight up. Even with their new coordinator, who I love, Kolenicki is a great coordinator. Came over from Kansas. It's not like the Jayhawks have a ton of talent, but they could throw it. They could run it. They were a pain to deal with. He comes over to Penn State. But is Drew Allar ready for that? Do they have the receivers to do it? How are they going to handle big games? James Franklin is terrible on big game Saturdays. They averaged 13.5 points between the game against Ohio State and the game against Michigan. That's terrible. I know they beat Iowa and teams that don't have any offense. The Big Ten last year was offensively offensive. So I'm not sure what to think of them, but their defense will be legit again. No doubt about it. And they are, I think, better because what they went through last year, Allar's a junior. We'll see. But kind of like Georgia, they don't use the portal a ton, but they didn't get a home run at receiver. They actually lost one of the receivers to Auburn, had over 50 catches. So this is a team that I'm all over the place with. I personally don't have any idea what's going to happen with Penn State. You can make an argument out of the top 10, they are the most difficult team. to project in all of college football, ranked inside the AP top 25 poll. I think they're really hard. With Kolenecki, again, really good coordinator, this could go a lot of ways. It may take a year, though. Is Auer ready? Because if he is, he's got the arm strength to end up being a first-round pick after this year. He has a cannon, but it's still about reading the defense after the things start moving when the ball is snapped. That's my concern. Michigan, obviously, they lose Harbaugh, but they also lose not one, but their entire defensive staff somewhere else. A lot of them went with Harbaugh to LA to coach, and that's great. Good for him with the Chargers. That's tough. Sharon Moore, obviously, under a lot of scrutiny with the whole scandal that Harbaugh left behind. He was involved with it in some capacity, but I don't know if that's going to impact him that much. It didn't impact him in playoffs. They won the title last year. They lost some talent at receiver. I need to see what they can do without their quarterback, too. JJ goes in the first round. That's tough. They didn't kill it in the portal. They have a different kind of system, a little bit more like Alabama and Georgia. They don't use the portal quite as much, but I just think there's so much noise, so much smoke there. It's going to be tough. That's just my opinion. I think Michigan will lose at least 2 games, if not 3. Their schedule's not tremendously difficult, but how many teams lose that much from their coaching staff and have a transition that's seamless, even if they hire from within? That's not normal. Finally, we are to the Noles. Here's why I think Florida State is still going to be pretty good. Now, I know they lost Keon. I know they lost Johnny. I know they lost Jaheim. Obviously, you lose your quarterback, who's, for the most part, a 3-year plus starter, depending on how you want to define it. He was in and out of the lineup a little bit during this early portion of Florida State. But they lose Jared Verse. So you're thinking, well, that star power hit them. And they lost 13 guys to the NFL Combine alone. That's a lot. But they also have a tremendous talent coming back, including Patrick Payton, who I think is as good a bet to be the ACC Defensive Player of the Year as there is. You can bet on others, but I like him a lot. Homegrown player for Florida State out of Miami Northwestern. That guy's really good. He's going to make a lot of money on Sundays. I also think that the portal additions, and again, it's proven with Florida State. That's what this is all about. Again, as a reminder, name a team that does better with their portal additions, and this is why I think they should be ranked higher. DJ Uyunglele, 5th-year senior quarterback from Oregon State. And then we're just going to go on here. Marion Cooper comes back from Colorado. He's going to be a good DB. Kim Riley played a lot of football for Auburn. He might start for Florida State at inside linebacker. Great pickup. Rodell Williams comes over. Guy that played a ton of football for Alabama, was a key guy even when they played against Georgia last year. He's going to be with Toafili to make one of the best 1-2 punches, not just for Florida State in the ACC, but in all of college football. Richie Leonard, the most ironic addition they bring over from Florida. You want to add some guys like that, that's great. But at the same time, I don't think that anybody's shocked people are leaving Florida. That's a weird program. We'll see how that goes. But that's a good pickup just amongst several others. I ain't going to mention all their additions. Just by the way, these are just some of the guys that I think have a chance to start and or help this year. Earl Little Jr. probably going to be your nickel for Florida State. He played at Alabama. He's a kid that Sotan knows from his days when he was down in South Florida. He coached this kid when he was in high school. Earl Little Jr. is really good. Then you got Devontae Brown. He's played at UCF. He's played at Miami. He's made a transition from corner to safety. Allegedly, he's going to play there. He probably could play corner still. Marvin Jones Jr., another guy that transferred from Georgia. Pass rusher, has made a good dent in fall camp. That's a guy that's expected to start from the Noles. Jalen Brown's made a dent in fall camp. He's a burner out of South Florida. He's a Miami kid. Now he goes to LSU and then to Florida State. You can't teach speed. He might be as fast a guy as there is on the roster. I'd love to see him go against Malik Benson, and that's another guy to mention. You get Benson from Bama, he might be your best receiver this year. You get Jalen Lucas from Indiana, a versatile guy. It's a running back who can play in the slot. They get that, and then again, they got DJU. I didn't even mention all the players, but beyond the talent, again, this is about something else. Their ability to galvanize, win in the locker room, and they've shown it. This isn't projection. It's proven. They did go 13-0 last year. How in the world are you not going to at least give them a little more credit? I think part of it is DJU. I don't have a ton of confidence in him, like completely dominating games, but they have so many complementary pieces. You got coordinators back. You have staff that's back. Your defensive secondary is fantastic. Why would you not rank them a little higher? That's just my opinion. Again, if you would, comment on YouTube, make anything you want. If you want to shout out something to the Locked On Seminoles Twitter handle, fire away. I'd love to hear what you have to say, but that's my take on it. To wrap up the show, we're going to talk about the culmination of the two segments we had already, but it's injuries. There are some unfortunately horrific injuries to talk about in college football, and Florida State, quite honestly, is probably going to benefit a little bit from this. That's next on Locked On Seminoles. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Nobody likes injuries. You don't. I don't. Nobody does. Just in the SEC in the last week or so, that I know of, there might be more that I'm unaware of. I know of 5 running backs that are going to miss significant time, including 3 that are out. 3. I mean, they're done for the year. That sucks. In general, for college football, we all want to see these young men compete. But at the end of the day, this is a sport of attrition. 2 of those players play for the University of Texas. I briefly mentioned that. Cedric Baxter, for instance, he might have been the starter for them and certainly would have been among the heaviest used at the running back position because he's a tremendous receiver as well. I think Baxter is a great example of why the NFL, quite honestly, is not real high on drafting running backs towards the top. It's a position that gets beat to death. And it's also why more teams throw the ball now. It's easier to avoid injuries. There's not as many big collisions, especially if you throw outside the numbers and down the field outside. So Florida State, to my knowledge, and I doubt Norvell is going to announce a whole lot, but I don't think they've had any major injuries, knock on wood, but they're going to have some. Regardless, that's just part of football sometime during this year. And that brings me to the final point for today's program. Florida State's chemistry, their ability to bring in the right guys in the transfer portal, will make the following scenario work out well, at least the best day it can. If you have a position that goes through a run of injuries, and again, almost inevitable for every college football team, including the Noles, that it will happen, Florida State is more likely, based on their chemistry, their locker room, their culture, Norvell, how they do things. And again, it's proven that they could have a guy change positions, even if it's just short term. They could have guys help out. They could have a shift in philosophy in a guy that would normally get the ball more, whatever the case is, or play more. He may have to adjust. They will do it as a team much better than the vast majority of college football teams, if not the best. Again, this is a team sport. It is not a fly-by-night, take it easy, we'll figure it out, but I got to get mine sport if you're going to win, if you're going to advance to and deeper into the college football playoff. You have to find a way to get everybody on that same page. And it's probably the hardest thing. You can talk about it with anybody you want, but in the world of academia, they got people that will reference, Gandhi or anybody else like that. Bobby Bowden was great with it. They had chemistry with him that was unbelievable. All walks of life. But in today's me first, I got to get mine. I'm not going to accept that kind of mentality society that we often live in here in the United States. Florida State football is one of the purest at getting guys bought in. I'm not saying every single guy on the roster is, because that's baloney. But at the same time, I bet you couldn't name 5 programs that have a legitimate shot. Matter of fact, 3 even, that have a legitimate shot at the 2024 college football playoff, that have more chemistry and ability to adapt on the fly than Florida State, because of all the things I mentioned: the portal, the chemistry, the roster, everything they do buys into that. I still think that if bad things happen in any one position, I'm not rooting for it, but the injuries that I just mentioned at Texas, I don't know how that'll work. I don't know enough about Sark's team. That may still work out great. I honestly have no idea. You just don't want to lose players. That's why I don't think they're a top 5 team right now. But at the same time, if you take that same scenario and you shift it to Ole Miss, how will Kiffin handle it? He took a lot of guys in the portal. I don't know them as well. I haven't heard as much about it. But with his track record not being exactly sterling in big games, again, he's won 1 major game in his life in the top 10. He's won other big games, but nobody that finished in the top 10 other than that one. I don't think you're looking at a scenario where many teams are going to be similar to Florida State. I don't trust Ole Miss. Penn State, I don't trust James Franklin. In fact, they got 2 great running backs. One of those guys gets hurt, they got talent to replace it. But I don't know how the infighting will work. I have no idea on who would change at other spots. They're so deep at running back, it may not matter. But there are other spots in that roster. They lost some good players. How will the receiver room adapt? They've been beat on. And they lost Keandre Lambert-Smith to Auburn. These are just a few of the examples that I'm giving to you. So in conclusion, this is very simple. Florida State should be ranked higher. I don't wish this upon anybody, but right now it's not competitive. Florida State's more deserving of the number 4 spot than Texas is. And again, I know it's injury, and the poll was kind of voted on before this last kid got hurt too, but their depth chart just went down the drain. That's unfortunate. Kind of the way it is, though. And then there are a couple other teams I'm not sure about. Injury at Notre Dame. You got iffiness, Penn State, Ole Miss. You could see a lot of changes if Florida State comes out and beats Georgia Tech, does so convincingly. We'll talk more about that this week. But you're not going to find many programs better than what Florida State's got right now. So, Nole fans, be appreciative of what you have and enjoy it, because we're just right around the corner. We're 11 days, matter of fact, from Florida State opening up over in Ireland against Georgia Tech on the 24th. So that's going to be fun. With that, please like this show and please hit that notification bell. Please make sure that you rate and review. I truly appreciate it. And after this, once again, please go check out Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin. It's a really good show. I'd appreciate you did that as well. Everybody have a good one, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow.